Welcome to another episode, Middle Ground with JLE, L.L.C, where we treat you like family. Got another great guest for you. Got a fellow Wayne State University alum and mentor, Vice President of Student Affairs at Adams State University, Henry L. Robinson, Ph.D. How you doing, sir?
I am doing well. I think it's good for us to connect, once again, and
Absolutely.
pleasure to be talking with you, man.
Oh, hey, you helped me get through college, brother. A lot of them great conversations.
Oh, that's for sure.
All right.
You're always very, very thoughtful, and very much a guy that was on the cutting edge of current events, politics, sports, history, philosophy. You are always there.
I try to keep up.
You gave me a lot to think about during those years.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So first question would be, what led you on this path?
I think for me, starting out in higher education, it really was all about kind of like giving back and doing for other people what folks had done for me. I think that really was the major emphasis, the major reason why I decided to have a career in higher education and, more importantly, student affairs. Because like I say, people, in some ways, I say they raised me, because I didn't grow up with a lot of money and didn't have a lot of contacts and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so, people took me under their wing and they was like, look, man, you got a lot of potential, but these are some things that you have to do and need to do if you want to move forward and you want to be successful in higher ed. So I just learned what I could and tried to share the rest.
Okay, so I remember at Wayne you was head over trio, and now you left and you're the vice president of student affairs at Adams State University. So what does a man in your position responsibilities pertain?
Well, I have to share with you that actually I've decided to leave Adams State.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And I left on June 30th. That was my last day there at the university. And in many ways, I am very glad that I had the experience, but I found that the environment really wasn't one that was well suited for me.
Okay.
And they had a lot of issues and a lot of challenges. Primarily, I would call it being in the middle of a civil war to a certain extent. So when you walk in those situations, when you have one part of the university that's really fighting against the other part of the university, and you're in the middle, so to speak, trying to do the best you can for the students who really don't have any stake in it. They don't even know what's going on.
They're trying to get the green leave.
Exactly. So yeah, man, instead of arguing and fighting with them folk and trying to get them to move forward in ways that were progressive, which they were resistant to in a lot of ways, to their detriment. I'm like, you know what? God say, walk away. I got this. I got this. And I got you. So
that's true. That is true.
Everything works out for the good. And so right now I'm just relaxing. I'm spending time with my wife. I'm enjoying my wife and my family.
Okay.
And just looking at, future directions. But, the time that I spent there, I met a lot of good people. There were a lot of good people there, and some of them whom I miss, that were really committed to students and really committed to the university. But there were other folks there that just wanted things to remain in 1998.
Oh, no.
And then they behaved that way.
I was 2 years out of high school back then. No, gas was cheap under Clinton, though. Ooh, we under $1. That was awesome. Ooh,
so I had to let them go, man. I was like, hey, you need to walk away from this.
Wow.
Walk away with your head held high. I left them with a good transition plan, and now they're following it. It's like, okay, you didn't pay attention when I was there, but now that I'm leaving, you see the value of what I left you. So it's been cool, to be home.
98, wow.
So I tried to take you back a minute, didn't
I? Man. 98, I was still going to Legends College night. Oh, man. That was a crazy time back then.
Yeah.
Downtown didn't have all the stuff it has now. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
So
think
yeah.
that's a thing with some colleges not willing to move into the future with programs and stuff?
Well, I think the pandemic has changed a lot of things,
Okay.
and people who had power, like primarily members of the faculty who really want to run the institution,
Hmm.
but don't really understand all of the things that go into it.
Okay.
You know, so they want to make decisions that benefit them
Uh,
as opposed to benefiting the students. So, so students get disadvantaged, or if the institution takes a step backward, it's okay as long as they feel that things are okay for them. And that's pretty much how they operated. And so during my time there, I challenged them on some things. I
oh
challenged them
yeah.
how they treated students, particularly in regard to COVID.
Okay.
Because we had mask policies, we had um, other policies where essentially we were essentially saying to students, to take care of the community, we're all going to mask up, right? And we were encouraging students to get the vaccine, things of that nature.
Okay.
Um, but there were some members of the faculty that thought that, um, because I was in charge of a lot of things, like I ran essentially half the university, but I was also in charge of student discipline.
Mm.
And so, they were coming to me like, well, you ought to be using a code of student conduct to discipline these students and to essentially treat them like children. And my position was, and I wrote an open letter to the faculty, essentially challenging them and saying, hey, they're grown. They're not children.
True.
And if you approach them in a way that is respectful, 9 times out of 10, they'll pull up their mask, they'll pay attention to you,
Mm.
and they'll do what it is that you've asked them to do with not an issue. But they were approaching students like, I'm Dr. So-and-so, and you better pull your mask up.
Oh no.
And I had to let them know. I said, look,
Oh no.
this is 2021. A lot of these students have been in the streets with George Floyd protests.
Mm-hmm.
So their relationship to authority is not the same relationship that people had to authority in the 1980s, right?
Nah, they on that stone cold, man.
Where you could walk up on somebody if you were an elder and ask them to do something, and they would comply simply because of your status.
True. True.
And I told them, I said, these young folk, they have a very different relationship with authority.
Mm-hmm.
They essentially want to be regarded and respected. And you have to have some form of relationship with them before you ask them to do something as personal as cover their face.
Yeah.
And if y'all just coming at them like, I'm Dr. So-and-so, and many times they didn't even introduce themselves.
Oh,
They were just like, pull up your mask. And these kids, I can't call them kids, but these students were like, you can kiss my black behind, and I don't know who you are. You're a stranger to me.
oh man. Wow.
So no, they're not going to just back away. And then they were also approaching them in front of their friends and trying to punk them down.
Oh man. Yeah,
And
that makes it worse now. Pride on the line.
I told them, I said, these students would rather go to jail than have you embarrass them in front of their friends.
Because somebody got the phone on going live, like, oh man, this is going on right now. Now the whole world watching. They can't take it.
They were up in arms talking about, well, you're the vice president for student affairs, and you should be using the code of student conduct to control these students and to do what we want. And I'm like, you have to treat them with respect.
Yeah.
They'll do what you want, and you won't get this war, because right now you've received the war that you've asked for by not treating them as adults, by not treating them respectfully. So no, they were not happy with me. And it was an open letter to the faculty senate, because I'm like, y'all are the leaders of the faculty, and your team aren't treating students respectfully, and then when the students cuss you out, you want me to punish them. No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I remember many days pulling your trash or cleaning your department. Like this dude got the button up for real, bow tie look, clean cut. And I hear the Wu like, is he playing Matthew? That's the Wu Tang. Okay, he a little gangster. He a little gangster. All right, no, you wasn't having none of that bull jab over there. Like, nah.
You know, so like I say, man, I just like later for y'all. Y'all can have it.
That's unfortunate. It was on that.
But you know, but I think it's part and parcel of how things have changed with the pandemic. And my approach was pretty much we need to be prepared to serve the post-pandemic student. Not the student that was here 20 years ago, not the students that you thought you wanted to serve. You know, they're not here. The students that
a
are
whole new
here
world now, man.
are the ones that we need to be about serving. We need to learn from them. We need to find out what they want, how they want to be treated, and then move accordingly, because it's not going to hurt us to have better relationships.
No.
Now, some of you might have to be on the high horse, but that's not going to hurt you either.
No, because I remember when we was in the eye of the store and I was finishing my degree in 2020. Like, we're gonna get through it. This ain't revelation. Read your word. We ain't there yet. Calm down. But it's gonna be a new normal that we gotta get prepared for. Mm-hmm. We ain't going back to how it was. Like before it comes, it's like you got to stay in the building and work. Like now, no, you can do the Jetsons. You can work from home and be on the screen talking to somebody. We can do that now. It's okay. You're probably saving some money with your light and gas bill, you know. So a lot of things that used to hear, like, you can't do that. Like, it was a reset, so you had to figure something out, and you can do it.
Right.
Like, I found out Wayne State had the technology, big blue conference, something to do the video conferencing already. Like, I didn't know that. But they weren't using it. So, like, this stuff was around. It was like, we don't ever need to use that. We're good. Like, oh, wow. We got to figure it out now. And we scrambled in a week or two back then. We were online. And every week, we used to have a check-in, like, how y'all feeling? Some people were very, like, man, I don't know. Someone I know passed. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, look here. I don't care if the world ended. We getting this damn diploma. We work too hard, come too far. The whole planet could be burning up. We need that degree first. Then you can burn this thing to the ground. But we need to get that piece of paper. It's too much work we put in. We got to get there. We all kind of got on that valve, like, you're right. Like, it's too much work, man. I don't care about the pandemic. I see it right there. I can touch it. I'm getting about this boy. I ain't trying to do this forever. And now it's a new world where that student is very different now going to college.
They are very
different. And you got to talk to them with respect. You can't just, oh, well, we're authority. And
that's
just authority.
That's why I describe it as, you know, it's a relationship, right? It's a relationship with authority. It's a relationship with elders that call upon the elders to not just rely on position, not rely on degrees, and not rely on status. I mean, like I said, them days are done.
Yeah, I see a lot of people back at Wayne would have a nose up in the air. I have 2 PhDs. Some people I know would feel bad, like, dude, if you put the same work in, you get 1 or 2. Well, they just started before you did, so it don't mean nothing. Don't make you, unless you got a Captain America serum or something. Okay, that's different. But bachelor's, master, doctorate, anybody can get one. You put the work in.
True, that's true.
It ain't hard. You just gotta put the work in. You'll get one.
That's right.
Better, you know. So, did you deal with that student affairs at Wayne as well when you was there?
I think Wayne was a little different in terms of student affairs, where when I look at Wayne and I look at the racial politics of our region, you kind of see them played out. You kind of see them played out. You know, so the history of, you know, the rebellion of 67 or 68, the changes in how the city was run, all of that plays out in the university, and I would say within the major institutions in the city of Detroit.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think that some people, well, many people from what I've seen, or my observation, is that they look at it as a majority African American city, which it is, but the power still rests within the same institutions that were in power in the 50s. So that hasn't changed.
No, no, it hasn't. Nah. And some people say, well, I mean, we used to have a lot of social conversations at Rand's house for the county lab about stuff like, well, we had a black president, we're different. Like, and how many times did governors and people of stature disrespect that president? So what does that mean?
Right.
But Jeff, like, remember the Arizona governor lady waving her finger in his face, which is so disrespectful? And then nobody say, how dare she do that? So I'm like, well, she had a point. You respect the office of president. Don't matter who's in there.
Hmm.
That's always been a law of the land until he got in there. So just because we have made some strides, it ain't all the way gone. Some people are stuck on color, even though we all bleed red.
True.
It's kind of crazy. And
And
that person you don't like might help you while you're tripping.
mhm.
So get off that and just do what the Bible says. Love your neighbors thyself. What you should do. Well, a lot of us don't. And it's crazy.
Well, some of it's rooted in power, some of it's rooted in money. Sometimes it's rooted in psychology.
Yeah.
And it's just the psychology of some folk thinking that they're better than other folks. And that's kind of how they're wired, you know. So if they can look down on the next person, that gives them some sort of feeling of superiority or sense of satisfaction or other things that really in the real world don't matter. Because, like you said, we all put our pants on one leg at a time, most of us.
Mhm.
And, we all bleed red and we all, breathe oxygen. So,
Yeah, I can say after going through the college experience, it definitely broadens your mind and viewpoint of world events and cultures you might not have known. Because without college, you might not walk up to a different culture and say, "How you doing? My name is so and so. Can you tell me about your culture? I'm just curious." You might not feel comfortable, or you're looking at stereotypes.
mhm,
I can't say Wayne State made sure you had a group project. It's going to be diverse. You're going to have to talk to each other,
right.
and you learn something.
And I think that's valuable in and of itself, just seeing how different groups of people view the world,
Hmm.
how different groups of people can look at the same problem, but see it in multiple ways from their cultural perspective. And that's how I think you get the best out of any group of people, you know. Um,
Absolutely.
I look at what they call diversity.
Hmm.
What I've seen on most college campuses is what they call representational diversity, meaning
Okay.
the nice phrase is, we got a few,
Okay.
or we got that one. Look over there. We're diverse. We got one. Um, and it went from diversity, or the paradigm went from representational diversity to what they're trying to do now, which is equity,
Mm.
where, okay, so now that we got so-called a few, we were still treating them different, but they're still a part of us as long as they do what we want. So then they said, okay, well, let's see what we can do about equity so everyone's treated the same.
Mm.
Now the new wave is inclusiveness,
Okay.
because you could still be in a majority group of people being a person of color, and the representational diversity was there for the show. Now it's like they're trying to move towards being more treat you like everybody else. The third part, inclusiveness, is supposedly there are no barriers between you and I, and we're all treated. We include you now,
Hmm.
because I think a lot of studies have come out, and particularly of African American students in suburban schools,
Hmm.
and the data was speaking to how even African American students that are supposedly in a better educational situation um, are not treated the same as white students in many instances in the same buildings.
Yeah.
So they have higher rates of suspension, lower grades, are not referred to gifted and talented programs as much as white students, even though they may have similar academic ability, which spoke to that lack of equity, even though you had diversity. So diversity was there, but the two groups of students weren't treated the same.
Yeah, I know some that experienced that growing up, and just meeting people at Wayne that came from suburbs here that you could tell you ain't really welcome, but we'll tolerate you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow. Like,
Yeah.
you can tell, just no matter where we was at, but you knew y'all cool, but we really don't want you here. Like, okay, that gotta suck.
Oh, for sure. And so the whole inclusiveness perspective is all about bringing in not only the person of color into the environment and into the group, but also valuing, that person's ideas, their perspectives, their presence. That's what inclusiveness entails. It's accepting all of who they are, not just the part that you want.
True. Now, with student affairs, what is the main role they serve to aid the student in college?
Primarily, what student affairs does is that it helps the student with things outside of the classroom. My perspective, and being in the business for over 30 years,
Mhm.
is that student affairs is just as valuable an educational experience as a student would get in a classroom.
Okay.
Now, many faculty would disagree with that. They want student affairs to be 2 or 3 rungs down, and the reason a student comes to the university is to take academic courses. And to a certain extent, that's true. But in student affairs, we help that student find him or herself.
Mm-hmm.
We help that student manage his or her money. we help that student if they have a psychological issue, get therapy and emotional support. We help guide that student through the university's curriculum, because there are a lot of classes that make up a degree program, but unless you're taking the right classes at the right time, then you end up wasting thousands of dollars and a whole lot of time. And so student affairs in many ways also becomes that place where students find out who they are, what types of careers they want to pursue. So it's more than just, and of course we house people in student affairs, we feed people in student affairs, we protect people in student affairs. One of my responsibilities as the vice president for student affairs was university police.
Okay.
They reported to me, the chief, and we had a very strong relationship. And so, we were dealing at that particular university with folks that, and I'd hate to say it, but they were engaged in various forms of criminal behavior. And I put it like that. Some of them long-standing.
Wow.
And when I got there, I had to kind of tighten a lot of people up. Like, why are y'all tolerating this? I don't understand why this person is a student here. So that was also some of the challenges that I faced when I was there. But still, student affairs help students to achieve their best self within the classroom and outside of the classroom in ways that the faculty generally don't value.
Yeah, because life still happen even before or after class.
Oh, for sure.
No one to help you deal with it.
For sure. And, some of, I think, the most difficult conversations that I had to have were with the parents of students that had attempted suicide. Because I was also in charge of the counseling center.
Mm-hmm.
And, getting the right types of support in collaboration with our local hospital, all of that stuff. So, we were responsible for working with, those students that were harming themselves in some form or another, or threatening to harm themselves. A few had tried. And, we had to, of course, have them isolated.
Mm-hmm.
we were managing COVID during that time. So we were focusing on students that had contracted COVID, not only quarantining them for certain periods of time, which means they couldn't go anywhere. We had a special residence hall reserved for those students. So they couldn't leave their residence hall for any reason while they were under quarantine for 5 to 7 days. So we had to feed them as well. So we were bringing meals to their rooms, checking up on them, making sure they had medication, all of those things. And that's the invisible work of student affairs that many people didn't really understand. They were just concerned about how many cases of COVID we had on campus and, casting blame because we actually had COVID on our campus. Like it wasn't in the rest of society as well. But,
everybody had a problem.
And it was the Division of Student Affairs' fault that we even had COVID on the campus. That's how many people, that was their attitude. So, like I said, we were doing all of that type of work. I think we had 3 or 4 cases at a minimum that I can remember where students had attempted to kill themselves. And for a variety of reasons. You never really can understand how much pain a person may be going through before they attempt something like that.
True.
But having conversations with those parents of the students that had attempted to kill themselves, those were very difficult. That, and then of course, the other side of the coin was parents whose students were charged with any manner of criminal behavior. And, you have the parents, oh, my child's an angel, he didn't do anything. And
man, stop it.
The police report says otherwise. And our video cameras say otherwise as well. So
you knew before they came here they had certain tendencies you ain't looking. I don't see it. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. And, and then you had other folks that were just drinking themselves into like stupors, passing out, etc. So, I mean, that's part and parcel of it. And we had, a lot of athletic teams. And with the athletic teams, you have folks that get concussions from time to time.
Ooh.
And dealing with taking care of those students that had concussions relative to their treatment, but also ensuring that they still had access to academic, materials if they couldn't go to class because of their symptoms, what they needed to learn and how they needed to learn to manage their situation until they could fully recover.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, so it was more than a notion.
Yeah, student affairs is very vital to a school. I didn't realize all they do. Shout out to all of them across the country. Man, that's a lot, brother.
It is a lot.
Man, good thing he had no shot of Jack after some of them situations. Like, woo-wee, that's a lot. And that could have been just one day.
Well, sometimes it was one day. You get somebody. They got in a fight on campus after the party let out. You had another student that tried to harm themselves. You had, other people who weren't coming to work. You had to manage the COVID situation. So we just, we did what we needed to do. But yeah, student affairs is much more than, babysitting.
Now, from this experience, what would you say the impact that you saw by you being in that position and helping the students?
I think maybe the most satisfying elements of my work were those that occurred with student government.
Okay.
Because I was advisor to the Student Government Association. And so in working with the president and the officers of the Student Government Association, it was really gratifying to see how they learned and how they grew, because the campus, the year before I got there, they went totally remote. And most people moved off campus, right? They went back home. And so when I arrived, they were just beginning to reinvigorate or to restart all of the student organizations and student government, because everyone came back to campus.
Okay.
So the residence halls were full. And so the clubs and organizations were doing their thing. But the new student government president was like, I don't have any materials because the last president took everything. and I knew the policies and procedures. So that was a difficult start for us.
Wow.
But by the end of the year, the officers had grown so much, and that was really. And I'm still very close to many of those students that were the officers in the student government and the student senate. So that was a very good positive. I think a lot of the other students that I met on campus that I just had a chance to interact with, just like going to the gym and working out and seeing them in different plays and concerts and things like that, or just talking to them on campus.
Okay.
Because I met a lot of the athletes and had a chance to talk to a number of the football players. I addressed them when I first arrived. And the diversity in that area of southwestern Colorado, where I was predominantly, European American, Hispanic American, Native American.
Oh, okay.
It's also from a cultural perspective.
That's different.
Very different from Detroit, that's for sure. But a lot of the football players and people on the track team were African American men. And many were Polynesian men, which you really never, they were like Samoans, right?
Oh, yeah, I don't know if Wayne ever had some of them. Well, they did. I can't recall counting none of them.
And so when you're talking with the young men about life, about okay, you're in college, what does that mean? And their thing is, well, I'm sorry, Dr. Robinson, but I'm just getting ready to go to the league,
Gotcha.
And that was their point of view. It's like, yeah, I'm in college, but I'm here to go to the league. And I'm like, I got you, dog. I understand that. But understand that even if you make it to the league, you're probably going to end up playing at the most 3 to 5 years. And so what are you going to do after that? And even if you make a lot of money initially, that money has to last you the next 50 or so years, because right now you're in your 20s. So how will you be able to navigate life and manage life without the lessons that you're learning in college?
Good point.
And so I used to talk to them a lot about that, and the brothers, they would come talk to me about, well, I'm trying to find a good woman, a good spouse, a good whatever, and I'm like, okay, let me help you out, So I had a lot of discussions with the young men about being the best man they could be, and then preparing themselves for being what they said they wanted to be in the future. In many cases, the guys would say, I want to be a husband, I want to be a father, I want to be, the leader of my home, things of that nature. And I would let them know, I said, this is one step in preparation for that.
Yeah.
But it's just managing that in such a way that you understand that even though you want to go to the league, and I'm not here to discourage you, but that's only a small slice of your life. And those other things are going to last much longer. So that, so they have things put things in perspective.
Yeah, talks we used to have me look at, okay, you're going to get your degree, then what you going to do with yourself? Like, no, I ain't stopping. I really thought about that part. Okay, you want to have a business of some sort? What type of business? Like, dang. We had to write it down in daily operations of getting to Z. I'm just looking at, I'm going to be balling doing this. I'm like, I ain't thought that far. Like, dang, that's some stuff you dropped on. You got to sit down and start thinking about this.
Yeah. And the other piece of it sometimes I think is that, and some of it's how we've been raised, right? You figure, okay, I'm gonna get the money first, then I'll figure out the rest later.
Hey, I figure I'm the number one draft pick, got my degree through a pandemic. What a job at, baby? What?
So,
man,
my thinking was always, if you're thinking of and answering these other questions along the way, then you know what to do with the money once you have it. And you'll be able to manage it in such a way that it serves your family now and generations into the future. So it's more than just I'm here for the moment, and I'm gonna get paid, and next thing you know, everything gonna fall into place because we all know that life isn't like that.
Man, you ain't lying. You have a dream and boop, what's plan B?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, think about that. Well, you better start figuring out now because take that off the table.
Oh, for sure. And then so, that kind of brings me to the next chapter of my particular life where I'm in a space now where it's like, wow, I have the freedom to decide if I want to go back into higher education
Okay.
or if I want to go corporate, do nonprofit work and or philanthropy. So I have all these options before me now. Whereas before I was so deep into higher education that I hadn't really looked outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I am blessed in that I have a wonderful wife, my queen. We've been together 28 years. We've been married 28 years, man. And so, she said, all right. She said, Henry, you wanna let him go? I said, baby, I think I want to let him go. And she was like, well, you can come home and be a kept man. I was like, cool.
That's all right.
Cool. And she was like, until you decide which direction you want to move in next, So I got a strong queen, she got my back. I've had her back all these years, and we just partners. We serve one another in our marriage,
That's awesome.
So I'm in a space, yeah. So I'm in a space where I am really blessed. I don't, how do I say it? It would be great to have a job right now, but in some ways, I'm kind of like, I don't have to.
That's a great position to be in.
It is. It is. Now, sooner or later, I'm gonna get tired of not doing something. I know that, because I know my engine's always running, but it's gonna be time to rev up again soon.
Where you leaning so far towards?
I think I'm more or less looking towards the nonprofit sector.
Okay.
Because I want to be, in some ways, in a position where I can influence what happens in higher education without necessarily being on the campus. And what I mean by that is, there are several organizations that give money to higher education to have successful outcomes for students. But, as we talked before, there are many people on college campuses who are only looking out for themselves, and they're not looking out for the best interest of students. They'll throw students up front and say, oh, well, we're doing this for the benefit of the students. But when we look at their results, you find the opposite. Because their results don't speak to what's best for students. And then when you ask the students what they want and need, they're like, well, the system in some ways is working against us. And so I'm kind of like, I would like to be in a space where we can control funding streams and say, okay, institutions of higher ed, unless you begin to do really what's in the best interest of students and your numbers, your data, your outcomes, your results show that, then we're not going to give you money. And we're going to reward those schools that are doing the best thing for students because their results tell us the truth. So it's not what you say you're doing, it's what your numbers say. And the lives of the students are those lives that are positively impacted in ways that we can measure it. And it's not just a song and dance or a dog and pony show. It's what does the data say?
I can see you doing that.
So
to really affect change, to do the right thing for the student.
Yep, to do the right thing.
See, we doing it. They gone. Woo, get that check of cash. Like, no. Bring the analytics cats up in here. Show me that we projected this and it don't fit. You lying. Nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's all about analyzing the data and looking at what students are calling for. And I'm not saying that you give a student everything he or she wants.
No.
You know, there has to be a check and a balance, and the student's responsible for his or her education. And so nobody's denying that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I think to the extent that you have schools, and I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at a school that had a program, an honors program, and they would have like on Saturdays they would bring the students and parents together,
Okay.
and they would evaluate them for scholarships, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they would say to the student, "Your parents must be present."
Mm.
So that's cool if you're a suburban student and your parents only work Monday through Friday, and they can take off Saturday and they can come down to the university with you and sit in all day on these
Yeah.
in these meetings and orientations and interviews. That's great. But if my mama work as a cashier or a waitress and she got to work Saturdays as a low income student, that takes me out of the running. So
Mm-hmm.
they were giving all of this money and all these opportunities to students that already had money and opportunities.
Yeah.
And
Selfish.
the academically talented low income student was ineligible because their parent had to work on the weekend.
Yeah. That need to be more balanced out.
Yeah. So you see, those are some of those hidden structural inequities
Mm-hmm.
that you have when people talk about opportunity or the lack thereof. And when I mentioned it to them, they couldn't even see it. They were like, "Well, what do you mean? We think it's a wonderful thing to require the parents to be here." And I'm like, it is a wonderful thing, but it's not the best thing if you really want to meet the needs of the students that you claim you want to serve.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take their life circumstances into account. You just can't assume that everybody is an upper middle class parent that doesn't work on Saturdays.
Yep. Or got two jobs working.
Yep.
And
So
it's sad some people think like that. Like that's not the real world. That's where you come from. Everybody's story ain't that.
exactly, exactly. So it's in many ways it's challenging them to broaden their perspectives and broaden their horizons about what excellence means and who qualifies for the rewards of excellence.
Yeah. Make it fair. Let them put the work in.
Hmm.
Technology, you can. I don't know if it'll work, but I mean, you can do a Zoom with them so the parent can still be there with them and have the same opportunity compared to they physically have to be in your office, for example. They can't do it. They're working.
Right.
We can make some accommodation. We got the technology.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's what COVID's kind of leveled a lot of that. So COVID has taken us out of the in-person, face-to-face interactions and really put it in a space, like you said, where it's 24/7. It's immediate. It has its advantages. I think too much of it is a disadvantage, though.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just old school in that respect, you know, because I've seen the other side of technology, and I'm sure you have as well, where everything is digital and no one can connect to it emotionally.
Yeah. They
You know,
went from texting to
say that again.
video conference. We went from texting to now video conferencing. That's big in our culture now.
Hmm.
Where, like, you talk about on the phone, like, what you mean? Like, okay, you don't want to hear a girl voice? Like, dude, like, hold on. And these conversations in the county lab and ran, so I'm like, you met this beautiful woman on campus, and you want to sit up and do that the whole night? You don't want to say, hey, how you doing, beautiful? What's your name? What's going on with you? You don't want to hear her say something back? Like, come on, bro.
Well,
Mm-mm.
yeah, and I think one of the things I've noticed with young people, and I hate to put it, maybe I shouldn't say young people, is the idea that there is a communications gap. And when you talk with many face to face, they're not really strong in terms of their communication skills because they're used to texting one another.
Yeah.
And so when you ask them, even when you ask them a question, they tend not to think in terms of um, a deep philosophical answer. It's yes, no, or I haven't thought about it that deeply, or I can't answer it right now because I just haven't given it that much thought. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of interesting in that it's very important. And no, you can't answer it in a text. You can't answer it in 160 characters like Twitter. you know?
I before COVID hit, the Mike Illick's School of Biz started mandating you had to do like a exit reflection paper. And me, I'm like, Mom, yeah, I want to know what's going on. So I'm asking Professor, I know, okay, why are we doing this? I'm in accounting, man. What do I need to do a paper for? I thought I was retired from the game. Well, we get feedback from our students, they get jobs, and they're not on par with writing for professional emails or paperwork of that sort because they're so used to shorthand text. I'm like, oh. And then I stop like, well, every time you walk counter jet, what you see? Like, yeah, I guess that would probably trickle down to how you speak and type. It's always LL or whatever shorthand compared to a complete thought typed
Mhm.
out. Like, interesting.
And one of the things that I always share with students is that being able to write well is critically important because your writing speaks for you when you're not in the room.
That's true.
So we would get students that would write scholarship essays, for instance. And it's like, at some point you'd be asking like, why do you want this money? Or you haven't written enough to convince us to give you this money.
Mm-hmm.
And you shake your head like, okay, this paragraph you wrote is like 3 lines, but you want us to give you $10,000. No. You
You got to dig a little deeper than that.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit deeper, in terms of your background and experiences and why you're interested in earning this scholarship. What are you going to do with your life that this money is going to assist you in reaching your goals and how is it going to help you? So I mean, that's the other side of it. The other thing I think with the technology and COVID, and I know that it was something that the nation had to do, um, is that for a while I was director of admissions at my last institution because we had a lot of turnover, right? So I ended up serving as director of admissions. So I'm reviewing transcripts for students that wanted to enter the university.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see like during the first 2 years, 2018, 2019, they had really strong grades, right? When they were in person going to school. 2020, 21, D's, E's, F's. I was like, wow, like this kid has fallen off of a cliff, right? In terms of their academic performance. And it coincided with, K-12 instruction going online.
They spoke about that in Michigan, how some kids can't be self-disciplined to just keep grinding without the teacher, hey, get to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, they can play a video game and beat it. It's something like school, but I guess it's very different connect. I'm like, wow.
Well, the video games are entertainment.
You're right.
Right.
You want to do it. Homework and fun.
Homework and fun. And so I think it makes a difference in terms of the mode of instruction. In other words, how things are taught.
Mm-hmm.
Because even online, if you have folks that are just lecturing and they're not doing anything interactive with students, which is also very hard to do online, but possible.
Yeah.
What you find is that the students tune out.
Yeah. Don't be on camera. I heard some kids camera be on, they in the bed knocked out. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
He's got the camera on.
Yeah.
No.
And there were some school systems that actually were telling their teachers not to, penalize students whose cameras were off because of their home conditions.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so you had some students that were learning at the kitchen table. You had other family that were around. So it just kind of depended on the home environment that a student had,
Hmm.
whether or not they were in tune with online learning in some respects.
Yeah, some parents knew was complaining. I got to teach them like, well, you gonna respect teachers now.
Yeah, you know, or you had a bunch of, foolishness going on. So if you have a child who, say they got a 2-bedroom apartment, that's their room, but they share their room with 3 other kids.
Yeah.
It's hard to learn in that type of space,
Hmm.
So then you move your laptop to the kitchen and you try, but then they cooking breakfast. Your siblings are fighting. You got a dog. In other words,
Everything going on.
everything going on. So I could see where it would be difficult for a student to learn under those circumstances to a certain extent,
Yeah, I would
and
agree.
for a teacher to teach well,
Yeah, they're superheroes.
big
'Cause
time.
I seen a lot of people. I want to apologize. Teacher, like, oh, your bad kid that you wouldn't discipline, you sent out to that teacher who can't discipline. And my kid ain't bad. You live with him. Stop it. You know what you allowing them to do. Now you got to have them do their math, and what they do in school, they doing with you. You're like, oh my god, I didn't realize. Like, yeah, that's your child.
Well, that's true. And I guess, on the other side of it, I've been in spaces where, there are some parents that believe that it's the school's job to educate their children. And they have totally given up responsibility for educating their children to the school systems. And then they wonder why their children aren't as successful because they're not reinforcing what the school's teaching in the home.
Yeah, some people don't have your kid best interest at heart.
Right. And so really the first unit of education in a child's life is the home.
Hmm.
And it always remains that way. I think, in many cases where parents were so caught up in work and other things, and like I said, they kind of like gave over or turned over responsibility for their children's education to the school system, then they essentially shortchanged their children, in my opinion.
Yeah, you don't have no big mamas no more. If no one else, you're gonna get that work. Sit down.
Right.
You're gonna know how to write your name, your letters, everything. You might be, I can't stand so and so, but when you get your diploma, like, dang, they really help me.
Yeah. So when you talk about kids that are behind in, say, reading, particularly reading,
Hmm.
because you can read just about anywhere.
True.
But a lot of kids come into school now, they're behind in like 3rd, 4th grade, they're behind 6th grade, they're behind 8th grade. That means they're watching a lot of television
Yeah.
and they're not reading anything. And so that's a parent's responsibility. And the few hours that a child spends in school is not going to make up that gap.
No.
And summers make it even worse, right? Because then you're outside playing and you're doing other stuff,
Hmm.
but very little educational stuff. And then they go back to school and the teachers are kind of like going through last spring's work just to catch you up for the first few weeks.
Yeah, I'm from the generation where they would pretty much say, "Oh, you're a young black male, about 17, you'll be a teenage parent, in and out of jail. By 21, you'll be dead." Like, that ain't my life. I'm somebody. What you talking about? They used to always. It's funny how the world was in the 80s, early 90s. Then you always heard that everywhere.
Hmm.
They might still do it, but a different way now. But you always heard like, "Man, I turned 21. I gotta get a bottle of champagne because your neighborhoods were rough. Gangs and drugs were big in some urban areas, so you had to go to war zone just to go to school."
Right.
And it's like people died for you to get the opportunity to learn, and now you have this opportunity and you have better tech. And like, what you mean you can't read or write, dude? How you gonna count your money? How you gonna take your girl out? You basic stuff to talk to a dude like, "You want to take your girl out one day?" Yeah. You can't pay for the movie because you can't count how much it costs. You can't read what time it starts. Like, dude, come on, basic. You gotta know your stuff, man. Come on. And I don't know about now, but it was stories before about Detroit, how the reading level was low. I don't know if they still make math requirement like it was when I went to school. And those are big things because you do use it every day.
Mm-hmm. But I think the other element of it, in some respects, is what I refer to as a parenting philosophy, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of, and this is somewhat controversial, but I'll put it on the line anyway, is that as parents, sometimes if we're not careful, we end up raising our children to reflect our past versus looking forward and raising our children in ways that will benefit their future.
I can see that.
Because the times change in between the time we were children and then in between the time that our children are going to be grown.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're raising our children based on our past, it worked for me, look how I turned out, then what ends up happening is you shortchange their futures because you're not looking forward to seeing the types of skills that they need, the types of experiences they need to be successful going forward. You're always thinking about what happened to you back then. But technology changes, people change, and economics change. And if we're not preparing our students or our young people for those changes going forward, but we're always looking back, then we say, oh, well, you don't need to know how to do that. That camp is too expensive. But I'm going to get you them Jordans, though. I'm going to get you them Jordans. I'm going to get you them Stephs.
Yeah.
So I can't pay $250 for engineering camp, even though you're talented in math. I ain't going to pay for that. But, oh, you want them Jordans? I'm with you. So you got more on your feet than you got in your head.
Yeah.
And the crowd, begins to value. Yeah. They begin to value the appearance of wealth versus valuing the generation of wealth.
Yes, because you need to be a chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
Or I used to watch that Pretender TV show where that kid could mimic anyone. With the way how rapid technology changes, your child should be able to move like water with whatever's going on, so they can still get ahead to wherever their purpose is.
Oh, for sure. And one of the great things about the new technology is that the young people do pick it up much faster.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a wonderful thing. And the thing that I share with my son very often is I said, okay, son, you may have more technical knowledge, more technical information, etc. But what you gain in technological know-how, you lack in wisdom. And so we need to get the wisdom in line with your technological know-how. And that takes time. So, because he's very talented in science and engineering, right? Mm-hmm. So, and he's a robotics major at the University of Michigan right now. But my thing coming up with him was like, I understand that that computer screen you spend a lot of time there, but you also don't cut this grass.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to come in the garage, you're going to help me do this physical, this manual, this dirty, this other stuff.
Yeah.
In addition to, the book learning and the computer and all of that, which is fine. I ain't got no problem with it. But that can't be your whole world.
Yeah, you got to be balanced. Power went out tomorrow. What you going to do?
Yep. But like, I just go to Kroger. I'll be like, look at here. You see that ground out there? That's Kroger.
Awesome.
You can plant this. You can plant that. And I told him, I said, look, son, you got 3 seasons. So you should never be broke. Summertime, cut grass. Wintertime, you can clear snow. In the fall, you can rake leaves. You ain't never got no reason to be broke.
You're right. You don't see kids doing that no more, really. You're right. And people will pay you to do it. They don't want to do
They perfected the art of the hustle, though. So they like, why should I hustle? And all I got to do is ask you.
it. Yeah. I come to old school, like, nah, you're going to get them hands a little dirty, get out there and get that work.
Mm-hmm.
You want some money? You got neighbors, you know. They might want some stuff thrown out, $5, $10. There you go. You got money, go to the store.
Oh, yeah.
You will go ask, like, you know what? I do got clear out my garage. I get $20. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you rich. Back when candy and stuff was cheap.
Right.
You could buy some chips and juice in the candy bar. So you ball if you had $20.
Oh, you was balling when you had $20. You go get you some now laters.
Man. Get all the good stuff. Last question. What advice do you have for someone trying to find their purpose?
I think in finding one's purpose, for me, it comes down to how can I help the next person reach the next level, right? No matter where they may find themselves. And so in finding their purpose, I think it's important to, of course, pray on it and to have an understanding from the Lord in terms of who you are,
mm-hmm.
which is a lifelong quest because it changes through the decades. It never,
right.
It may change form through the decades, but it never goes away. And then reflecting on the things that you like to do, that you're very good at, because many of us have natural gifts, right? Mm-hmm. Some people have gifts of administration. Some people have gifts of management. Some people have gifts of technical know-how. In other words, they know how to fix things. Mm-hmm. And to begin to think about how they can turn those gifts into money so that they can, raise their families, they can take care of themselves, be self-sufficient. Because I think we all have gifts. And there are some people who work in one field, but their gift and their passion, their calling is somewhere else.
True.
But they're not very happy people.
Yeah.
So if you could find that match between your purpose, your passion, your gifts, and your money, and bring those things together, in many ways, to me, that's how you find your purpose. In ways that where you'll be happy with what you're doing, you'll be fulfilled in what you're doing, and you're not just doing a job just to say you have a job, but that mm-hmm. everything that you do in terms of your work life has a purpose and meaning, and that you're helping somebody along the way. Even if you're just building mousetraps for a living, right? You're helping somebody's house be cleaner in some respects. So I think that's how I would answer that question. You have to be able to monetize the things that you love doing. I know some people love video games, right? My son was saying that coming up. I was like, okay, son, I hear you. But how you gonna eat? So, in some ways you have to begin to think about the practical mm-hmm. and and your purpose and passion, and bring those two together, and you're unstoppable, in my opinion.
That's awesome. I mean, I used to get this knowledge 5 days a week, and that's clean your apartment. So I know this is gonna help somebody figure it out when whoever watching or they watch the replay of it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this is awesome. I remember a lot of them days leave out your apartment like, wow, learned something new I ain't think about. And they helped me along the way, for real.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the gifts that God has given me, is the ability to, I guess, in some ways, take very complex ideas and to simplify them, so that people can apply them in ways that matter. and that bring meaning and value into their lives. That's one of the gifts that I have, and I'm thankful for that gift.
Yeah, I can definitely see a nonprofit making a difference and help change the world a little bit. I definitely want to thank former Wayne State alum and mentor, Dr. Henry L. Robinson, Ph.D., former Vice President of Student Affairs at Adams State University. Soon to do a lot of amazing things. It's been awesome catching up with you, sir. I learned some more new stuff from you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on the show, man. And I'm glad that you're still out here making it happen for people.
Oh yeah, I'm trying. Just let it go, but God put you on fast. You gotta do what you're supposed to do.
That's right. That's right. And you are performing a valuable service, man. When people look at your podcast and they say, okay, this buzz about sharing positive information and for ways to show people how to uplift themselves and uplift others. So I'm thankful, man, for what you've done.
I appreciate that coming from you, for real. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. It's been another great show. Until the next time, hope everybody have a great weekend. Good night.